Howdy, howdy, howdy. My name's Eric,
And this is Berto.
and this is Totally Biased. Oh, what a week
What
one.
a week one. Yes.
A lot of obviously week ones are always, nobody really knows what teams look like, but I think this week one has been especially
More so than always.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was very different
Than
than
usual.
what most people thought. I think a lot of that comes down to kind of what our headline for this episode is going to be, which is the transfer portal and kind of the new way to build
The
teams, right?
new way. Yep.
So I'm sort of labeling this week, and especially based on how it transpired, sort of the battle for the soul of college football, right? And what I'm trying to get at there is like the soul of college football. You've got on one side, you've got the traditional method of building your team through recruiting, and your players get developed and everything
Yep. Yep.
internally, right? This is pre-transfer portal era, right? So most of the time you only get maybe a couple transfers here and
Yep.
there on
Yep.
occasion. On the complete opposite side of that coin, you have Colorado and Coach Prime, who basically completely gutted their program, told everyone in there in on the 111 Colorado team to get the fuck out.
Yep.
He said, "I'm bringing my luggage, and it's Louis Vuitton."
And it's
Right?
yep. It's Louis. Yep.
It's Louis Vuitton. So he did, right? So
And
he
he did.
completely
And he did.
overhauled his team, right? It's almost completely
I mean,
new.
yep.
I think there's
86 new guys.
yeah, I think there's one starter that remained
Yep. That
on
remains.
the
Yep.
on the team.
Yep.
And so it's sort of the future versus the past. And what did we see this weekend? Well, take Colorado, right? Like we just mentioned, 86 new players. Well, everyone thought that they're, 3.5 went over under for their wins for the season.
Yes.
And they walk in and
They
I'm
might
not
get three by end of September, dude.
I'm not gonna okay, but I do want to pump the brakes on Colorado a little bit, right? Because I think people obviously were a little bit overhyping
This
TCU, right?
guy. This guy.
Fair enough. There, yes, but
Will they
obviously,
get three wins by the end of September? The next
uh,
game is Nebraska, then Colorado State, or something like that.
they,
And then Oregon, obviously.
I think they win two of those games.
So they get to three. They
No,
already have
no,
one.
like two,
Oh,
two, or sorry, I think they win. They only win one of the next two.
they either beat Nebraska or they beat Colorado State.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're gonna get to two, and then they're gonna lose to one of those, and then they're gonna lose to Oregon. So you still have them at
Yes.
two. Okay,
Yeah.
fine, whatever.
Yeah. No, I
I
think
got them
they're.
at three.
I think they're going over their over
Oh, the
under at
three
this
and a
point.
half. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but the whole idea, right, is that people thought that this was normally if you're going to be a new coach, it's going to take time to install your
Yep,
system and everything,
yep.
right? And Dion basically, nobody had any idea what this was going to look like. Can this even work? Can you even install people and have them, a bunch of players who don't know each other make a brand new team out of nothing and actually succeed? Nobody knew it could be done. Dion might have done it, right? It's one game, so got to pump the brakes a little bit, but he might have done it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a weird. I think we talked about it, right? We talked about the 86 transfers. I think one of us said it's just a group of a whole bunch of good players, not a team, really, because it's they've not known each other. They're all transfers, all that. But like you said, he said he's bringing his bag, and it's Louis and Shadar Sanders looks like the part, and Travis Hunter, which I do have to point out was my dark horse Heisman pick, looks
That
like
he
a Heisman
was.
contender. The dude playing both ways, how he did with that the ridiculous pick, first off, and then
Yep.
catching 11 or 12 balls for like 140 yards, and they missed him on a couple, like deep balls. Like if he can keep that up, which we don't know, right? It's only one game. If he can keep that up, he's played over like 150 snaps or something. If he can keep that up, obviously he's going to look like a Heisman contender. They will win more games, not 10, 11, 12, but more than the four. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's just a weird way of doing it. Nobody thought they could do it, but it is the new way, right? Like NIL and transfer came here to stay. Um, that's how we built it that way, and it's making sense. It looks like it works. Um, I am not all the way in, but I'm not all in the way in on anybody right now because it's only 1 week. Some teams have two wins, which we'll get that in a second. But it's nobody's really knows anything. It's just one data point to what we always say.
Yeah.
But going off of that one game, away game in a hostile environment in Fort Worth, where it's like 110 degrees, all that crap. It looked good, and like that's where you would think that Travis Hunter wouldn't do well, but he did. So and he said it, I think in an interview today, he was like, "Yep, I'm gonna go find more Travis Hunters," which I don't think there are those grow on the trees like Dion didn't grow
No,
on trees, but
nope.
that sentiment of like, oh, I'm gonna go find more transfers, and because I'm doing it this way, and I know I can get guys in, I can go get more guys and try to do it more, and potentially like nobody's expecting to win a national championship, but if they win 5, 6 games this year, and then next year they get to 8 or 9 or something, it could be a proven formula. Um, can he sustain it? Because it kind of reminds me to people have been talking about the whole Kentucky one and done type stuff, right? Which Kentucky hasn't won a national championship in like over 10 years with their one and dones. Everybody does great, goes to the NBA, makes money. And I hate comparing different sports. I always hate that. But, you know, is this like a Shedeur Sanders only for a year or two and then Travis Hunter a year or two and then he can't bring in the transfers? Or can he? I don't know. We'll have to see more of this year in the next couple of years to see if it actually makes sense. But right now, I think it looks like it's working well.
Yeah, and we talked. If you go back and listen to some of our older stuff, kind of around the transfer portal, I sort of propose this possible future of college football, where you've got teams, and I'll say like Colorado in this sense, only because Dion is a recruiting device in and of itself.
Yes.
But you've got teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, like the blue bloods, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
These teams are, and if you believe that no team is tampering, then
Oh, well, that's just
I guess
bullshit.
good for
But
you, if you want
yeah.
to live in that world. But there is definitely a future, and I think it's sort of in line with what you're talking about for kind of a one and done, where you've got these big teams just pilfering the
Mm-hmm.
smaller teams, right?
Yep.
You go out and find a Keon Coleman, right, from Michigan State, right? Best player on the Michigan State team. Guess what? He transferred. Now he's on FSU and looking incredible, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
this is what these teams are going to do, right? The smaller teams are going to end up as it's almost going to be like a promotion demotion system, like the Premier League, right?
Yeah.
Like the players that aren't going to get playing time on the blue bloods are going to leave to go to the smaller schools. The guys on the smaller schools that are the best on those teams are going to get promoted up into the big
Yeah.
leagues, and
Yep.
at the end of the day, you're going to never have the small teams ever get a chance to really develop their own talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll end up with a little bit more parity because those talented guys are going to leave to get more playing time. But I mean, this is sort of what the future is going to look like. But we do need to quickly address the other two parts of this that we brought up, which is the Clemson side, right?
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, right, on the one side, like you said, you've got Colorado and Dion, who have 86 new players in this year
Mm-hmm.
alone.
Yep.
And then on the other side, you have Debo, Dabo,
Dabo.
who has
Dabo Samuel.
Dabo Samuel. I think he's had like a couple in the
Well,
last couple years.
he's outspoken,
Yeah,
like being outspoken about like he wants to bring guys and recruits guys here to be here for the culture and stay there. He doesn't really use the transfer portal. I think maybe he used it this year
I think he
or
used it
last year,
like,
maybe
I
for
think
one or two, but
two or
like
three players in the last
yeah.
couple years.
He's been outspoken about not trying to use it. And the same with kind of an NIL not being about a lot. Like if they can make money, yeah, but also like that's not why, that's not how they're doing about it if they have, slush fund or whatever. Like they're trying to be clean about it and not go about that way. But what we just saw yesterday, this is Tuesday now, didn't have worked out. Didn't really make sense. Maybe he has to adapt. I don't know if he will, because he's a like standing by principle guy,
Yeah.
and it worked for him, and he got 2 championships, and I think he went to 3 and like 5 playoffs or something in a great span. But then now, past 2 years, now even in this year, he is not looking good. So is it time? I guess the question is it time for him to adapt and change into this ever evolving world of college football with the NIL and transfers? Or can he stand by his principles and still win games? I still think they're going to win games, right? They're going to go maybe 8, 9, 10 wins, but not at that upper echelon, like you're saying, where you're winning national championships. So I don't know. I don't know what you think on his possibility to adapt or change.
I mean, I think in one weekend we essentially had and we tweeted it out that Dion is basically a meteor to the dinosaur that is Dabo,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
that the whole idea of being able to completely restructure a team through the portal and become instantly competitive and destroys what Dabo is trying to do, right?
Correct.
And then you look even within his own conference and you look at Florida State, who has had a meteoric rise over the last couple of years, meteoric being no pun intended there, right? To now being the what looks to be the dominant team in that conference through the portal, right? They've built that team through the portal.
Hmm.
You've got a team like Texas State who
Hmm.
portaled a ton of guys
Also
in,
portal guys. Yep.
and they just beat Baylor, right? And not just beat Baylor, but beat Baylor at in Waco by like 11, right? So
It was in Wyoming.
what? They beat Baylor.
No, but it was oh Texas State. Sorry, I'm confusing teams. Yes. Are you sure it was
Yes,
in Baylor?
it was.
Oh, okay, okay. Go ahead, go ahead.
It was in Waco. Um, so it's just one of those things that I don't think Dabo can continue to hold this principle and Clemson still be competitive. He can keep doing this if he wants to, but I just think it means that Clemson will kind of slowly die on the vine. They're already down. They have lost more games in the last couple of years than they
Yep,
had in a long time.
yep.
And I don't think it's getting any better. This first game, and if you watch the game, it was super freaky, to be fair, right? Like
Yeah.
they could
So
have won that game. They lost by 21, but they fumbled twice, like
yep,
within the 10-yard line. There's a
yep,
whole bunch of weird penalties and turnovers, and the
yep.
game was just all over the place and weird. And honestly, if you played that game 100 times, I don't know if Duke wins that game more than 50%.
No.
Um, if I'm being honest, right? I still think Clemson is a good team, but they're definitely lacking at wide receiver, right? A place where
Hmm.
they could have definitely got somebody out of the portal, right? They're just lacking in areas. I think they could use some better linebacking. They couldn't even contain Riley Leonard to save their life on some of these runs he had. But yeah, I mean, I think this is sort of the kind of initial demise of Dabo in Clemson.
Really? Okay. So that was gonna be my question. If this is the end of Dabo and Clemson, and I hate to do that off of one game because everybody starts to get ahead of themselves, and like you try to always say when is the Alabama dynasty over, and it's never really over. Same with the Clemson one. I kind of don't agree there. Because of what you just said. If you actually watch that game, they did lose 28-7, but like you said, there's two fumbles within a 10, which you hope to get at least two field goals there. There was a field goal blocked or maybe shanked from like the 10. There's also a longer field goal that was blocked. There was like that weird, I think it was called correctly, the fourth down play where
Yeah,
Cage slid feet first and wasn't down and where was down and then got hit in targeting because technically the play was dead, so it was a dead ball call. I think it was correct, but it was weird. Like that
yeah.
could have potentially been called differently. Two fumbles within the 10 is like ridiculous. You assume you get points there, and then at least two missed field goals, like one within like the 10 yards. Like you would assume you get points there. So and even Dabo said it. Like he said, is one of the most like weirdest games he'd ever seen
Yeah.
because he had over 200 running and 200 passing yards, and then lost. And I think they'd never done that, whatever, in his time there. Will Shipley does look good, but it looks like it's only Will Shipley on that offense. I guess the other running back also forget his name did pretty well, but
That dude's thick.
that dude's a big
He's
guy, yeah.
big.
But like those did well. But like to your point, K didn't look that great.
No.
Um, but they could have gone receiver right if they got transfer stuff like that because that's the main thing they needed. Um, don't want to discredit Riley Leonard because apparently this guy is considered like the after Caleb and Drake May probably the third best quarterback in the nation. So don't discredit his running ability and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree they could have done more with the transfers and also I don't know. And this we could talk about this maybe at a different point. If Garrett Riley because he's supposed to be like this offensive wizard, has been given the full reins of the Clemson offense, if that makes sense. Is
Mm,
Dabo still trying to stick to his principles and be like, no, this is how we do it at Clemson? Like you're coming brought in to bring in new concepts, but this is like the Clemson offense, right? Like you don't change that, which I don't know. Maybe that is, maybe that isn't. We'll get to see in a couple games. So I don't think anyways, from all that what I said was to get to the point that I don't think it's the demise of Clemson. It is a bad loss, obviously week 1 loss. And if you go back to last year, they had a loss at the end of the year against South Carolina, and they lost the Orange Bowl. So they've had like 3 or 4 losses in succession almost. So it is looking that way, but I still think you could have played this game, like I said, 100 times. Probably Clemson wins like 80 times or so. So I don't want to discredit Duke, because I think Duke is also really good, can win 9, 10 games, 11 games, maybe be competitive for Florida State. But I think it's true premature to say Clemson is donezo and the dynasty's over and like that's the end of Dabo, because he could adapt also. It could just be adapting, and it could just be a fluke game, and then they still win 10, 11 games. So that's only what I think.
I just think that, like you said, it's the first game, so you don't want to overreact too much, but there are players on these teams that weren't alive when Duke last beat Clemson.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, yes, it was a weird game, and there's a lot of weird stuff that happened. But if you're Clemson, right, and we're talking, when we're talking about demise of Clemson, right, we're talking about continuously being in the playoff contention. And once we get to the 12-team playoff, it's really national championship, semifinal type stuff, right? So yes, maybe they go, they're 9-3 or whatever, but that's not what the Clemson of the last few years has been, right? Clemson the last few years never puts themselves in position where they even get close to losing to Duke, even if there's some weird stuff happening, right? So I'm just saying that the margin has gotten a lot smaller, and they obviously have less room for error now. Whether that means that they're going to, they're not going to go 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably still going to go 10-2, maybe 9-3, right? But it is a concern that this is happening, and if Dabo continues to stick to his guns and not portal in new talent, but talent is leaving, right? So he's not backfilling talent when it leaves, right? So at the end of the day, his team is going to get sparser and sparser. He's only going to be recruiting from high school. His guys are going to be leaving. He's not going to be portaling anyone in. And I mean, the portal is only going to be hurting him going forward.
No, I get that. And I agree. The gap, these transfers help close that gap. I agree entirely in that's why the Dukes and Florida State's have gotten caught up to Clemson, and they've not separated or whatever. But if they go 9-3, do you fire Dabo?
No, not this year.
Not this year, exactly. So that's where I'm like, even if this year goes sideways, which I don't think it is, I don't think he's going 6-6. I think at least 8-9 wins is easy for him, if not 10 or so. But maybe they only lose Florida State. But if he can adapt and make these changes, or give away the offense, if that is the case, I don't know, or do some stuff, maybe it can work out. So that's the only reason I hesitate to be so quick to pull a trigger on them being a demise. But yes, if they continue, this could be the moment in time where people say this is where it started, and then he didn't do anything this season, and the next season they go 7-5, 8-4, and then you're like, well, are you going to change, or are you going to keep on this? And then it's not worth it, right? So I agree in that.
Yeah, I think there's the problem that Dabo is facing, right? Is right. Colorado is an extreme, right? You don't always need to completely flip your roster. And I would say that Florida State is more sort of what it will look like in the future, right? Where, okay, you need help at wide receiver, right? Okay, so you portal in a good wide receiver. Ohio State, right? They did not have the O-line that they needed, right?
No.
They were struggling at left tackle, so they portaled in a left tackle, right?
Yeah.
So are there places
like
where you have
that.
deficiencies that you need, right? Like I said, Dabo desperately needed to portal in some wide receivers. Right? Those wide receivers looked bad, right? They made Cade Klubnik look bad.
Yeah.
Right. Tons of drop balls on very important plays. I mean, it just didn't look good, right? They didn't get a ton of separation. It wasn't great, right? Especially when we look back at some of the wide receivers that Clemson has had over the last decade, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yes, it's too early to fully sell all Clemson stock, but it's definitely
in the same way to also buy all of Colorado. Like we agree. We're talking the two extremes. It'll be closer to the middle, so potentially Clemson can get closer to the middle. I hope that's the case, but if not, I mean, that could be, to your point, the start of the demise. But
Yes. Yep. And then I guess, to lead into, like I said, like I talked about,
yeah,
in
so
the
are you
middle,
thinking that
there's,
are you thinking that they're gonna lose to Florida State now?
yes, 100%.
They're gonna lose. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Because of all these stuff we already talked about. Okay. Which, I mean, Florida State looks good, right? We saw them. It was close against LSU for a little bit, and then they just took
Yeah.
over,
Yeah.
and
They were
it
they were
wasn't close
down
at
at
all.
half, right?
Yeah, I think they were.
17-14 at half, I think.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
so.
they went on like a 31 to like nothing run or whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, that
I think
was,
LSU scored once, but yeah,
yeah. They scored, yeah, at the end.
but yeah, it was.
That was a clinic in the second half. But I will say that I do think that was really sort of what I was kind of expecting. I wasn't exactly sure what Florida State would look like.
Okay.
I will admit that I thought they were a little bit overhyped walking
Agree.
in.
Agree.
I
We talked about that.
we
We
you
said
know
both those teams were overhyped, though.
yes, and the
We
second
did
point
say
is
LSU.
I think LSU is very overhyped. I think Jaden Daniels is
We've been
blown
saying
up
this.
like a balloon. I
We've been
don't think he's
saying
that good.
he was
Uh,
projected like the number 2 in betting odds for the Heisman, which we were like, how? We
yeah,
both said
I
this.
don't get it. I don't get
We
it.
did not.
Brian Kelly is using Harold Perkins in coverage.
In coverage. Yep.
I don't know what that's about.
A middle linebacker position. I don't know.
It's like putting Micah Parsons in coverage, right? You
Well, I
need
mean,
him. You need him going after the quarterback. That's what he
correct,
does,
correct.
right?
But he wasn't that in college, to be fair. But
He
yes,
wasn't
yes,
that in college, but it's on the
yes,
Cowboys putting Micah
yes. You
Parsons
put him
in
at a
coverage.
rushing linebacker. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Is
Which
he going to be
also is
decent at that? Sure.
probably the closest comp I've seen, so it's interesting. But if Perkins were to continue doing what
Perkins
he
is
did last year,
100% sort of he is Micah Parsons, plays that similar position.
yeah,
I think he could be that in the NFL.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, they're misusing him. They don't have much of a, once Florida State realized that they could just kind of bomb it on the LSU receivers, they really, they could do,
Yeah.
or LSU DBs. And they just started blowing up on offense. LSU didn't have an answer for it. And
Nope,
that LSU
nope,
offense didn't look great.
nope.
Their running backs didn't look
The
fantastic.
running back didn't look. Nope, nope.
Their receivers don't look great. Their quarterbacking doesn't look great. Jaden Daniels is going to get himself hurt doing some of the stuff that he's doing, trying to jump through the D line and then getting obliterated. What was that about?
I don't know. I saw. I don't know. I agree. We'd said we had both thought that both these teams, Florida State and LSU, were overrated. But off of what we did see, we were, I guess, half right, because Florida State does look for real. Like, for me, Florida State looks for real. Granted, like we said, LSU isn't probably the best team, but I still could see them win a lot, or decent a lot. And Florida State, if they are what they look like, will beat Clemson if they can do that again, and probably go through the ACC unscathed. And if that's the case, they would probably be in the playoffs,
right,
assuming they do what they could do against LSU. But like we said, it's hard to go off of one game. It kind of reminded me as of the COVID year, the 2020 year, after LSU was the 2019 Heisman, or not Heisman, championship year with Joe Burrow's Heisman. The year after, they came in and they were like, they were ranked like 4 or 5 in the nation, and they got like stomped by like Arkansas in the COVID year, and then ended up going 5-5. I hope it doesn't go that way. They can, bounce back and have a decent year, but maybe this proves, to your point, they're more overrated than we even thought they were. And maybe Florida State isn't as overrated. Maybe they are rated correctly as a top. I think they're ranked 4 or 5 now in AP. So,
well, speaking of, we're gonna move right into our rankings after week 1. So this is a new segment we're doing. Top 12 teams. So do you want to just go one for one down the list?
I don't know how we want to do this, dude.
I say we go one for one down the list. And
so are you gonna establish the criteria or what? Because I kind of have a little bit of stuff here. So
yeah. So sort of the inspiration for part of what we're doing here is Berto and I always get upset and frustrated by the kind of lack of publicized criteria for rankings, right? So people always do these rankings and they're just baffling what people are doing. So we're going to try to make sure that we kind of do our best to describe how we got to where we're going. And I think,
Well, the thing is also we also say, which now that I think about it, we could have waited a couple weeks, but this will work. The preseason rankings are always like brought up,
yeah,
right? And so people start making opinions off of these bullshit preseason rankings. Like we're
Mhm.
saying, LSU, Clemson being both top 9 teams or something, and now they're potentially both should be not ranked, but
TCU
they're
at 17.
TCU at 17. Yeah, TCU is not ranked, but like Clemson and LSU are still ranked after losing, right?
Yep.
Why is that? Why would you have LSU and Clemson ranked right now? Only because of this
Clemson is
preseason
still
ranking.
ranked over Duke.
Over No, I think Clemson's 25 in the AP now.
They're in the coaches poll.
Oh, in the coach bowl. Okay,
Yeah.
I saw the AP poll. But anyways, why are they still ranked? And even to your point, over Duke, Clemson, it's because of a preseason ranking, which the
Yep.
preseason ranking is made up essentially. Like the preseason
Yep.
ranking doesn't like they try to be like, oh, we bring in like what we know from last year and this year, but then it's like, then that's not what we're doing. We're just the better one is the playoff committee that does it 8 weeks, seven
Yeah.
weeks in or something. But so now that I think about it, we could have waited a couple weeks. But we're gonna go. The criteria should be going off of what we know off of 1 week, maybe two for some of these teams.
Okay.
But I did make some weird stuff here. I was like, how much do you assume that you don't know? Like, is it like you're
Yeah,
just a
that's the challenge.
casual, like a casual that you know what Bama is and like these teams are big, or is it like, stay with me here, alien comes in
Yep.
and doesn't know anything about college football and just is like, here, you rank these teams, and they're like, we don't know what college football is, and you're like, you got to rank them, and I was like, crap. So then, how would they do it? So I have a weird one like that with the aliens, and I have a more regular one for
Okay.
myself. So I don't know if you want to
So
listen to all
so
this
so
nonsense.
yeah, we're not going to go one for one because I just want to hear what you got going on. Once we get that done and figured out, and listen to the alien, then we'll go. We'll get
We'll go.
get to mine.
Okay. Well, the craziness one, I was like the alien one. I was like, there's only way you could do this if you try to do like a standings, not a rankings, right? Because the rankings is like you rank them
Mhm.
even though they're both ranked 1-1 win. So I did a standings. So I just looked at every team. This took a long while, by the way. And then I looked at
Yeah, I
every
can't wait to
game,
make this graphic.
FBS game, and I was like the biggest margins of wins throughout all the teams. But I did start off with like, wait, would an alien be like, oh, this team's 2-0 versus this team being 1-0? So there are 5 teams that are 2-0. And then I did it that way, still with the difference in points. So Notre Dame is actually one in that one because they're 2-0 and have a 46-point margin. I can show this off also, the math I did in this win percentage, but win margin. Then it's USC by like 40 something. Then it's then it's Vandy because they're 2-0. They're 2-0 and they won by like 20 or something. Jacksonville State is 2-0 and San Diego State I did not know was 2-0. So those are the top 5. And then it goes into like 1-0s and it's just like by biggest margin. And if you
Oregon,
Oregon,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, Ole Miss,
Yep.
all won by like 65, 73, 74. And then it's like Cincy and like Syracuse and like UCF. And then it's like Alabama, which actually kind of makes sense. They won by like what they win by 49 or something. And then K-State, Auburn, and then like Arkansas. I think that's like 15 there. So
Okay.
this is way out there. I know it makes no sense, but if you were an alien, you'd be like, give me the standings, right? Even though it's not standings, these are rankings for a reason. The 2-0 teams have to go first, and then the biggest margin of victory. But we all know Oregon beating Portland State 80-3 or whatever does not correlate to what Florida State did to LSU. So
Okay. So let's hear your non-alien
okay,
version.
we going this one 1-1 now? Or
Yeah, let's do this one 1-1. And let me talk my criteria real quick.
Okay.
Right. So what I am trying to do on mine is, like Berto said, there you have to sort of figure out how much assumption, you have in terms of what happened in the past or what you already kind of know about these teams, right? So
Yep.
I did my best to sort of avoid assumptions and try to focus on 2023 on the field product. But there is sort of an understanding of sort of the talent level of some of these teams, right? As well, right? So
Okay.
to a certain extent, I would try to look to see, right? I test what I saw on the field. And from there, in some sense, talent obviously pops on the field, right? You can see that they've got dudes. So that's sort of the ranking. And I did take into account you know, obviously what I thought of the team that they played as well, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, all that. So when you look at my ranking, it's definitely top heavy with teams that faced, right, did well against teams that I think are decent, right?
Yep.
And then you kind of get into teams that, right, beating up on a Portland State doesn't really give me much information about you, right? It looks pretty good, but I don't, like
Hmm.
you said, it's not as good as beating a team that I think is pretty good, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's sort of how the ranking is set up. Mine is also kind of weird, but I think it's probably a little bit more in line with reality than the alien one.
Okay.
but but yeah,
Yes,
let's
the alien one is crazy. Mine is closer to your point. The regular one I have, to your point, I try to be what I saw on the field, not prick anything before. And I did more of like if you beat a power five team type of thing, or if you won away type of thing, meant more versus beating, like a Portland State or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of where we go. I don't know. I think these are going to be all over the place for both of us, just to be fair. So,
All right, so let's just get into it then.
yep.
Do you want to
Number
take
one,
your number one?
Florida State. I
My
think they
number
have the
one is also Florida State.
Oh, nice. Okay. I think they have the best win. Like I said, there was a neutral site game. LSU, I think, is decent at least. And then just Florida State just looked better, looked like a better team. So that's what I have Florida State number one.
Yep, I just didn't have a lot of questions. They look really solid. And they beat up on a team that obviously we talked about how we think LSU's overrated, but they are still a talented team, and I
Correct.
still think they're going to be pretty good based on what I saw.
Yeah.
So
And not
yeah,
to be totally biased, but they are in the SEC West team. So
AO. Uh, no, we are supposed to be totally
that's why I
biased.
said that. It is an SEC West team. So I take that as a better win.
Okay,
Anyways, go
so
ahead.
we're aligned there. Okay, so my number two is Notre Dame.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yep.
My number two is Colorado. I
Ooh.
know I'm high. That's high. That's bold. But it's just the way I looked at it is like I was saying, like, how much do you assume? I would just assume like it's just a first year coach versus an experienced coach, not knowing what players came in or something like that. Like, knowing this just random players, you wouldn't think they were supposed to win against. If you knew enough to know that TCU was the defending runner up, the national champion, you'd be like, oh, wait, they should have lost, right? I would assume it like my mom, right? Like your mom, like she follows but doesn't know that well. She'd be like, wasn't TCU like in the finals? Type of thing. So I think Colorado's good win is pretty good. But I'll let you go number two real quick.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to react to that as number two. I couldn't be more different on that. Colorado, here's a spoiler, is not in my top 12. It's not even in my top 15.
Oh
Um,
god.
Part of that is because I think
Here we go.
Colorado's win is propped up by how good people think TCU is. Right. So that was my issue
Yes.
with it. Right. So when I watched that game, yes, I watched them. I watched Sanders put up 500 passing yards. I watched all
That's a
these things,
lot.
right? Yeah, it is a lot. That's great. Love it. Love that for him.
And he's not putting it up against Portland State, right?
That's great. I love
Great.
that. I
Granted, we
love
don't
that
know
for
we don't
them.
think TCU is good, but
I love that for
they
them.
are a power five
I
team.
don't think they're in the top 12, and I say that because they barely beat TCU, who I don't think is a top 25 even team, right? So I look at it
So
as like, huh?
you don't think it matters that was Dion's first game at Colorado?
No, because I'm looking at it as who is the best team. I'm not trying to look at storylines and trying to look at like any of this stuff. I'm just looking at what I saw on the field, and what I saw is they have a good offense, right? But I think there was a complete lack of defense played by either team in that game.
Well, at the end, everybody at like the last quarter and a half, everybody was just
Yeah,
shooting it out. But that's just kind of,
but
I
that's
mean,
what I saw,
that's
right?
a Big
So
12 game. Well, I guess
I just
Pac
didn't
12, Big 12,
see
whatever.
a lot from there. I just think that the
Okay.
defense is a huge issue for
So
both of
fair.
those teams, and I also think TCU just really isn't that good from what I saw.
Okay.
And I think it was more impressive. Colorado played better than what people thought, but I don't think that necessarily means that
Exactly.
they are a top 15 team.
Okay.
My number two at Notre Dame is really just that they beat a below average Power Five in West Virginia. Sorry, not West Virginia. That'll be my next one.
West Virginia's the number three. Well, anyways, it
No,
was
no, no,
San
no,
Jose
no.
State.
Yes, but that's gonna be my next team.
Or no, San Jose State was already
To
it was
spoil it,
UC.
my
Anyways,
next team.
okay.
What I saw was Notre Dame looked pretty good, both
Oh,
sides
you're
of the ball.
we're
Right.
gonna have completely
Yes,
different
they're going to be
lists.
very different.
Okay.
They look good on both sides of the ball. I thought
Yep.
they, I just think they look solid, and I thought Sam Hartman played very well. So they're right now my number 2.
Okay. So I'll go next to number 3 because I have Notre Dame 3. So
Okay.
similar but a little bit different. I agree. They've played 2 games and they've won 42-3 in Ireland against Navy, and then 56-3. So they're outscoring teams right now like 47 or 48-3, right? Which is a ridiculous margin. Also playing, like I said last week, in Ireland, that away game, neutral site, whatever, thinking way, right? Like that whole having to get teams ready early on to do that. So they look good. The offense looks good. The defense looks good. Obviously, since they've only gotten 2 field goals scored on them, they haven't a touchdown scored on them. I think number 3 Notre Dame makes sense there. So I think we're aligned there. It's similar, but I feel like that might be where we stop aligning. You want to go 4? Or you want me to go 4?
No, I haven't even said my number 3 yet.
Oh, my
You
bad.
know
My
who
bad.
it is.
Yeah, because you said it essentially.
I didn't. Yes. So I have Penn State at my number
Yeah.
3 right now. Only because I liked what I saw from Drew Aller. I think they're a relatively complete team from what I saw. They beat up on a, you know, okay, okay team in West Virginia. Like I said,
Okay.
I just kind of liked what I saw, and they had a higher level of competition. I do expect Penn State to drop in my future rankings based on more data points, but they are currently my number 3.
That's not a bad pick, and I think I am getting your reasoning a little bit more now. But it's good. This means it's these. I don't have Penn State in my top 15.
That's
Let's
fine.
put it that way. Which will
That's
get
fine.
interesting because if you are going the way I think I'm going, you're gonna have a lot of teams that I don't have on. But anyways,
That's probably true. Who's your
okay.
number 4?
Utah.
Oh,
I have Utah. I don't think Florida is that great, but it was essentially the first game of the season. It's like on a Thursday, right? A short week, essentially, not really, but you know what I'm saying. And they had to play their second and third string quarterbacks, right? They didn't have to. Their Cam Rising, their superstar quarterback, who's been there like 3-4 years now. It seems like he's been there since I was in college. So, not having that, having to play their second string, third string, and still being pretty dominant against I don't think as great Florida team, but it's still Florida, right? Like if you think about it, like people know the name Florida, people know these as good teams. So that's where I looked at it as Utah, a good win there earlier in the week, obviously since it was Thursday, but that's why I have them 4. Who do you have?
I've got Oregon.
Oregon. Oh
Oregon
my
at number
gracious.
4. So this is where I started getting into, it was harder to start.
Wait, do you have Utah in your top 12
I do not.
or 15? Okay.
I do not.
Okay.
I do not have them. I have them currently at number 13.
Okay.
Right. With the expectation, right? So I could only grade based on my criteria on kind of what I saw, right?
Yes.
I'm not trying to predict, right, the team once Cam Rising is back on it, right? Because I don't know what that looks like exactly this season, right?
Correct.
I can only go with the quarterback that they had. Do I think that Utah will be raised on my rankings once Cam Rising's back in? Yes. Right.
But you can assume that knowing that the starting quarterback is out, that'll affect the outcome? Because that's how I looked at it.
The best teams that I've seen so far, he didn't play. So
correct.
He's not part of.
We knew.
I'm not trying to predict.
But really I'm not trying to predict. I'm just saying you go in and like you don't know anything about this, and you're here. The starting quarterback's out. You assume, they're screwed, right? Like that's. You would assume for some reason that guy's a starter. Granted, that might not be the case. That Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Bama 2017, right? Like they could have it wrong, the order wrong. Yep. But you'd assume the starter is there for a reason, and then they have to play their second and third string. They'll do worse. So that's how I looked at it. But I get what you're saying, that you haven't seen him do anything yet.
Yeah, I can only
take it pads yet.
This ranking is sort of at a moment in time, right? Okay. Right. So teams can improve over the season, and they will go up in the rankings, right? And once their quarterback's in, right? If Utah, let's say the opposite was true, right? Cam Rising did play, but then right at the end of the game got injured and was out for the season, right? At this
Then
point
you
in
would have
time,
them in, or you would also you
oh
would have
no,
them like top 4.
I would take them. I would drop them down because as of right now,
But I
right?
thought you're not projecting. You're not projecting what's going
I'm
to
not.
happen later.
I'm not projecting if he's already injured.
He is already injured. He was
I'm
injured
saying
before.
in the opposite. We are
I
going to
know.
take way too long on this
Yeah, we're gonna take this way
ranking.
too long.
Anyway,
You said at the end of the game.
my number 5. I didn't even talk really about Oregon, but they did pretty well. I thought they had a very obviously
They played
explosive
nobody to
offense.
your
They
point.
played nobody. Exactly. That's
81.
we're getting
Anyways,
into the teams that I don't
go
think
ahead.
played
Go
anybody.
ahead.
Number
5.
5 was Alabama.
Oh my gracious. Yep,
I know.
this is not how this is gonna
I
work
know.
out. All right. I got you number 5, UNC.
Oof.
Neutral site again. Technically, it was in Carolina, one of the Carolinas, so not neutral really, but it's technically neutral. It was game day, but that doesn't really matter. But I think South Carolina is actually a decent team. Will be a decent team. They played decent. I mean, Spencer Rattler looked all right, not great, and then Drake May looked great. So UNC looked like their defense was pretty good, which everybody thought that their offense was gonna be good because they did do really good in their offense, but both ways looked pretty good. I thought so. That's why I have number 5.
All right. Who do you got at 6?
Oregon State.
Okay.
Who do you have at 6?
I've got Georgia.
Georgia. So you have Bama and Georgia 5-6. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so this is where the talent, the evidence of talent on the field was obvious,
Okay.
right? I can't completely blind myself from who these teams are, in a way. Those two teams are just more talented than anybody else that you see, right? They just have guys at every position, and yes, they beat up on bad teams, and obviously they looked good doing it, right? So Georgia at number 6 right now. But
do you have Ohio State in this 12?
I do.
Damn it! What are you doing? Okay, all right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Who's your number 7?
My number 7 is Michigan.
Michigan. All right, without Harbaugh. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I guess they look good.
What do you have?
I have Duke. Duke playing, even though it was at home, they played Clemson, who I still, if you would think of like not know anything, but knowing they're a good team, Clemson has national championship, like I said earlier, you'd be like, okay, they're probably a decent team. Obviously Duke was at home, so I put them a little bit lower than like UNC or Utah. Well, Utah was Notre Dame or like Colorado, Florida State that were neutrals or away. But I think that's a big win for them since Duke, I think, has never beaten Clemson in or hadn't been in like 30 years or some crap like that. Like,
yeah.
So that's why I had Duke winning there, and it seemed pretty dominant. Like we already talked about earlier. I don't want to go into it. They seemed like to dominate. The defense stopped Clemson pretty easily, and then their offense pretty much did what they wanted in the second half. So,
yep. All right. My number 8 is Washington.
Oh, my number 8 is Washington.
Hey,
so weird.
I mean, Michael Penix. He did his thing.
He did his thing.
I mean, they just looked good. They looked able to they just threw it over the top. And they look good. I don't know what to tell you.
They look good. Yeah, their offense
across the board.
Yep. The Chris Peterson Bowl looked good.
Yep. My number 9, Oregon State.
Okay, so now you're going to Oregon State. My number 9, USC.
That's funny because my number 10 is USC.
Okay, we're similar now.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, between the two, Oregon State and USC, my issue right now with USC is I just think their defense has something to be desired there. Oregon State just looked a little bit more complete. And I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, Caleb Williams erases thins, but
yes,
I'm just trying to look at a team that I think Oregon State is more steady and USC is more boom and bust from what it looks like.
I like that.
It's the live by the 3, die by the 3 for USC.
Yep.
So they're going to have to just hope to outscore opponents, whereas I think Oregon State can play a tactical game and win, on offense and defense.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, USC, because of Caleb Williams, I don't got to say anymore.
Yep. All right. Who do you got at 10?
This is where it starts getting weird, man. I'm gonna be honest. More weird than it already is. I got Wyoming.
Oh,
Wyoming at 10, bro. Come on, you can't give me you don't like Wyoming. I told you it's gonna be weird, bro. Why do you like Wyoming? Also,
they give anybody a platform these days.
Wait, they got a quality win. They got Texas Tech,
Bro,
dude.
your takes are still better than RJ Young's.
Oof, oof. Okay, okay. Um, yeah, I mean, they beat Texas Tech, which is a good quality team, a Power Five team. They did have to go to like double overtime or some crap,
Yeah.
to win, which makes it more fun, but doesn't have to change the fact that they're good or not. But like I said, right around here, I started having to actually look and figure out who I actually thought was better than those ones, and I was like gonna go with the whole, who did you see win and get a good win? So that's number 10.
All right.
You're not gonna like the other ones.
My number 11, Texas
10.
A&M.
Oh, you already did 10. Okay.
Yeah.
11 Texas A&M. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Texas A&M. I mean, it doesn't hurt that I know a lot about that team. Um,
But assuming you didn't know anything.
yeah, no, it's not that I can't assume I don't know anything, but watching what I saw right there,
Assuming just what you saw and not
yeah,
what you know
assuming
before.
just what I
Assuming,
saw, their offense looks very good, right? Those receivers that they have look elite. At this point, I think with the exception of Colorado, and only because I think they were playing again against a complete lack of defense. Um, I think they had about as good as an outing as any receiver group in the country. I think they're going to be dangerous. Connor Wegman looked really good. I think they have a lot more in the tank. And I mean, I think their defense looked pretty good, and they've got guys all over the place. So I had them at 11.
okay. I don't have them ranked, but I have another Texas team ranked 11. Not the team you probably
Bastard.
think.
You bastard. You bastard. You ranked Texas State at number 11?
Yes, Texas State at number 11. Texas State at number 11. We talked about them a little bit. They also had a lot of transfers. They're not as big as a brand as Coach Prime in Colorado, but they did get a good win.
I like it.
A pretty decent, like I think a decent win, away win again at Baylor, and it wasn't really that close. I mean, it was kind of close, but not really. Unexpected. That's why I got them 11.
I'm here for it. Rank Texas State.
Wyoming and Texas State.
Wyoming, Texas State. Rank Texas State.
All
They're
right.
gonna love you in San Marcos.
Yep.
All
Number
right,
12.
my number 12 is Ohio State.
Oh, why do you? Okay, that's the one I feel the most offended about.
That's
I'll
fine.
get to that in a second after I say mine. My number 12, I started getting to that point where I was like, who's better than who? And so I was like, who threw up a shit ton of points? Oregon. Oregon's number 12 because they had threw up 100 million points or whatever it was. But I want to listen to why you think Ohio State should even be ranked in the top 25 right now.
It's a good question.
Are you gonna answer?
I don't have to answer. You're not my fucking lawyer.
You don't think so? Well, why do you have them 12? Like, I'll hear it. Fine. If you want to talk, I'll talk.
No, I'll answer. I'll answer. I think for them, at the end of the day, they look slow. It was like what, 21-3 against Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana's not a great team. They look slow. Obviously things didn't look like what a lot of people thought. They still beat a Power 5 team. It was a conference game.
Yes.
And yes. They beat them relatively handily, right? And
I guess.
So what I saw is a defense that is going to really help them win games this year, right? I thought their defense looked really good. Their offense obviously looks sluggish. I think that is a major concern. I definitely reserve the right to, drop them way out once I get more data points.
Way out.
And that's fine. But what I saw was I had hope on defense, and that's why they're up there. If I was just looking at their offense, yeah, they'd be out of the top 25 for sure.
Yeah, that's why I don't like who was there? Wasn't it like Fleming or something? Was like no, I'm trying to look it up. Who had them? Wasn't it like Marvin Harrison only had like 2 catches?
Yeah.
Ibuka only had like a couple catches.
Yep.
Even in the run game, Travion Henderson, what did he have? 12 for 47 yards, 3.9, which is not horrible. DeMonte Trayanum had better, but Cade Stover had the most yards. Like, for what I had thought or going in, I would expected them, if I had looked at them and been like, oh, they're just slinging it around, moving the ball like easy, like just going through like whatever, I would have been more impressed, but the offense didn't look that impressive. Their defense looked all right, but I also reserve the right to say that Indiana is dog shit this year. So
And that's fair too. I mean, so at the end of the day, right? These rankings are living, right? So
yeah,
I
they're
mean,
gonna change.
there
They're
we
fluid.
we have one data point at this
Yeah.
point. So I mean,
Oh wait,
shit,
are we
you
doing a
have
13 through 15?
no, we're leaving it at 12. We only
No,
got to
wait, you don't
12.
want to hear 13,
Okay,
14,
we'll do
15?
real quick 13 through 15. What are your
Okay,
13 through 15?
do 13, 14, 15 for you.
Okay, I have Utah, Tennessee, and Texas.
Okay, that's not bad. I have Oklahoma, and then I went back to Alabama, Michigan.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think those teams are sort of waiting in the wings. I didn't get a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly.
I was
Like
kind
they
of
won well, but they
Yeah.
didn't. Like to me, Alabama won well, but I don't think I saw anything ridiculous. Like that's why I
Yeah.
have Ohio State. If I had to go that far, probably like 30th or something, because they didn't look impressive to me. They won by 20 or whatever, but I don't know. But
Yeah.
to your point, this list is gonna change. Colorado won't be number 2 6 weeks in.
No.
I
Wyoming
don't.
won't be sniffing your top.
Yeah, Wyoming, Texas State probably won't be here in a week or two. Oregon State might be, Duke maybe, UNC maybe, Utah maybe. Notre Dame I feel good about actually.
Yeah.
I know I said that after week 1. I do feel good about Notre Dame. Whenever they play USC and Ohio State, those games are going to be interesting. And to your point, maybe Alabama, Michigan who have like 14, 15 can move up if they start showing me something. But right now they haven't. I mean, I don't think Michigan really showed anything other than free Harbaugh, which doesn't matter.
That was stupid as fuck. It was like it's like he died. They were like, oh my God, prayers up for Harbaugh. It's like the dude self-imposed,
Yeah.
like free him.
Yeah.
He jailed
He should have
himself.
freed himself. Yeah.
Well,
no, it was.
Is he going to turn around and tell himself to free himself? So
to free
fucking
himself.
stupid.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was hilarious. And that's the only reason I brought him up because, like I said, they won, but I didn't see anything really.
So stupid. All right, so that was our top 12. Like we said, the criteria.
Are you gonna put the alien poll up?
No.
Damn it.
I can't bring myself to put the alien poll up.
All right, but are we gonna compile these though and put mine and yours and get a
I don't know if
one?
It makes sense at this point too. I mean, honestly. They're just so out of nowhere. Like I think I think we need to compile them in the future once they've normalized a little bit and we've gotten some data.
That's what I was saying. We could have
oof.
waited 2-3 weeks to almost what the college football playoffs does, like give it a couple of weeks and then, like I said, Wyoming, Texas State won't be there. Colorado might not be there.
I think us doing it at this time was more of a protest towards the way that people do rankings, which is rank people in preseason and then give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Like Clemson losing and still, remaining in the top 25
or being above Duke in the coaches, like you said.
It's just like it's just weird
bullshit.
Stuff.
That's stupid bullshit.
Anyway, let's go to our bet tracking, right? So last week we put our bets in.
I thought we were not going to do this one this week. God damn it.
What are you talking about?
Because we did booty cheeks, bruh.
We have to tell the people how
bad we were.
Yes. So running it through real quick. So we bet $1,000 each.
Tough week.
Final winnings for both of us was 800. I don't need to go. Do you want me to go down the list? We just say 800, call it a day.
No, you got to say it.
Okay.
We failed, y'all.
Florida at Utah. Berto bet 200 on Florida. I bet 200 on Utah. I got that one. Colorado at TCU. That was TCU minus 20.5. We both bet TCU. Oof. And that's on the line. I bet on the line, yeah. I bet 300. Berto bet 100 on TCU. UNC versus USC East. We both bet UNC. We both got that one. Berto had 300. I had 100. LSU, FSU. LSU was minus 2.5. We both bet FSU. We both got bet 100. Got those. And then Duke at Clemson. Clemson minus 12.5. We both bet Clemson for 300. We lost that. Final winnings 800 each. Rough time. At over $1,000 bet. So we're both down 200, but we normally start slow because we don't have a lot of information about what these teams
what this told me is don't bet the favorite.
Yeah, don't bet the favorite. This is for sure.
Other than Utah, I guess.
So that moves us right into
Okay. Week 2.
Week 2, one of our
How do
most
they
popular
know?
segments, at least
How
for
do they
us.
know?
How do they know? All right,
Um,
go
just to
ahead.
preface, do you know any? Did you already know any of these? Because some of these games you might have heard before.
Um, I think I heard whisperings. I think of A&M Miami, but I
Okay.
don't know for sure.
Okay.
But nothing else for sure.
Did you know the Bama one?
I do not know
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
I
All right.
heard something like months ago, but
Yeah.
I mean that's been a long time.
In a
So
minute. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll get to those when we get to this. All right. So we're gonna start with the ranked games and then a couple games that are interesting, like we always do. 5 games. See if he can get within ±2, is it, or 3? I forget
three,
now.
three.
3 ±3. Um, the first game being the ranked game, which is an interesting game, of 2 previous SEC teams, and now it's only one SEC team. Number 20 Ole Miss, who also won by, and I can tell you,
A
won
million
by
points.
they won by shit. I had it on here somewhere. They won by 66.
Good.
So yeah, by a lot. Um, they play number 20 Ole Miss against number 24 Tulane, coming off of, now that we can assume stuff from last year, a great season last year, going I think 11-2 or so, and actually beating USC in the Cotton Bowl, with Caleb playing. So I don't know what Tulane really has done. They won, but they haven't done anything. Ole Miss really hasn't done anything either, even though they put a million points up. So Ole Miss at Tulane. It is in Tulane in Louisiana.
Yeah,
What do you got?
this one was hard for me. Um, neutral field. I had about a 10.5 point favorite for Ole Miss. So giving 3 points to Tulane, I said about 7.5. It's just early in the season. Like you said, I don't have a lot of information about these teams. I don't think I mean, I think Tulane's good. But I mean, I don't think they're going to be, world breakers. But I say 7.5 is sort of my gut feeling.
For Tulane or Ole Miss?
Ole Miss.
That's what I thought. Ole Miss 7.5.
Look at that.
Perfect.
Look at that.
Perfect. So I prefaced, that's why I started this segment. Did you know
Oh,
these
no,
lines?
I did not know.
Because I knew that one was 7.5 and you had it at 7.5. I was like,
I
what the
did
hell's going
not
on
know.
here?
I did not know.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, there's one. He's still undefeated. 6-0 so far. 6 out of 6. We'll go to the second ranked game. Probably the best game of the weekend. Could define a lot of stuff. A lot of people are saying this could be the deciding game for either of these teams, both of these teams, depending which way it goes. We got number 11 Texas versus now number 3 Alabama of their Jalen Milroe threw for 3 and ran for 2 or something against nobody in Tuscaloosa. Last year, this game, I think, was a 21 or 20.5 point line, almost a TCU line in Austin, and it came down to a last second field goal, and Bama won, I think, 20-19.
Yeah. So I actually just adjusted mine slightly. Um, we'll see if that helps me or not.
That might have screwed you.
Looking again, so I don't know. I'm trying to look at what I thought of Texas, right? And I'm only trying to think like Texas didn't look fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama looked pretty good. It is in Tuscaloosa, so what I did is I gave a little bit more bump towards Alabama for that. I think it's in. So I'll preface my original was 8.5 to Alabama. I'm going 10.5 to Alabama. 7.
7.
Fuck.
Bama by 7. You were right there and you screwed yourself. I saw it happen. I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
You thought too much into it. Yeah, it is I would smash Bama on -7 there, but we'll see.
I mean, that's sort of why I went that way, right? I watched what Texas did last week and was
Correct.
not impressed. So
Not impressed. Yep.
I would definitely take, and we will do that here in a moment, but
In a
I
second,
will
yep.
definitely take Bama at -7.
Damn. All right. All right.
First loss.
Okay.
That's okay.
First loss. Yep. 6-1. All right. We're going to another ranked game, another interesting game. Possibly the second or third best game this weekend. Number 23, Texas A&M, who you're high on. You had in your top 10 or something, 12. At Miami, this game was played at College Station in Cal Field last year, and ended up being like a 6-point game or something like that.
17-9.
Okay, so 8-point game. Very low scoring game.
It will
Mario
not be
Cristobal.
that game
Oh,
this year.
okay. All right, bet. All right.
It will not
Go
be.
ahead.
Those two teams are sort of parallels of each other. There's a lot of parallels that you could draw between those two teams. A lot of youth, very talented youth on both those rosters. Obviously, last year was disappointments. 5-7 for everybody. I do think that both teams will turn it around this season.
Mm.
But I think Miami has a longer distance to travel than Texas A&M. I have Texas
Games in
A&M.
Miami.
I know.
I'm
I'm saying distance to travel to being good. To being good. Well, ironically, Miami does have to travel like 30 miles to
It
their
does have to go
stadium.
like 30 miles, but not 300 miles. It would be more or whatever.
No, I'm saying they have a longer distance to travel to become real contenders and to be,
Okay.
a good.
Don't believe in Mario Cristobal.
I do believe in
Tyler
Mario
Van Dyke.
Cristobal. I think Tyler Van Dyke is good. All that said, 5.5 points to Texas A&M.
See, this is the other one I wondered if you knew already. 4.5.
4.5. Nice.
4.5
okay.
to Texas A&M. I think this actually started at like 3, so I think it's moved a little bit. So, but you're still within the 3.
Yeah, I think the key here is what that Miami rush attack does against Texas A&M's rush defense. Last year, Texas A&M had a really poor rush defense. I think that's going to be one of the big keys of the game. Miami's running backs all looked pretty good. If you actually watch that game, they're pretty explosive. So I think that's going to be the key to that game.
Okay, that's fair. We will move now to the I guess we had to find more games. I'll just put it that way. Still a ranked game. Well, one of them is ranked, but try to get some lines, see if we could mix it up a little bit. So we got then should be to the Aliens probably number 1 team, Oregon, who dropped straight up $1 billion on nobody, but they won by $1 billion, so they're actually ranked 13 against Texas Tech, who had a not so great of a weekend. I'll say it that way. It is in Tech. It is in Lubbock.
Yeah. So Oregon obviously looked good. They are very capable of moving the ball, even if against a high school team. Texas Tech played Wyoming, which I know is in your top 12. They are not in mine. I will say that I think the only benefit that Texas Tech has is I think losing probably increases their odds of doing well against Oregon, I guess, only because, obviously that can unify you, make you fight harder, prepare differently this week. All that being said, I have a 17.5 points to Oregon, which I thought was a big line, but it's really hard to gauge
big line,
this team.
and I also don't know why this line is like this is, but it is minus 6.5. Yes. That's what I did say before I said this. I had to find some games to see if I could trip you up, because that is a bullshit line if I've ever seen one.
Oh my god, I'm gonna bet $1,000 on that game.
I'm not gonna bet that much, but I also saw that and I was like, that's a wrong line. That just looks wrong to me.
God.
Holy, it looks wrong to me. So
shit.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you. I don't think 17.5, but I was at least 10 or 12. I was like, I think I said 13 or something when I was like, that'd be 13. No, 6.5. Less than a touchdown. So yeah, I also don't get it.
Holy crap, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's another loss. That one might be easy money for us. I also have another one I'm gonna have to do later, but I'll have to.
I would actually go put your money on that. Like legally, I can't tell you to do that. But like if you have any money, go put it on that game. Okay.
All right.
I do think we said that last week too, and I think we might have lost that one.
Lost money. Yeah, I don't remember which one we said, but the last one, except for the bonus one, I'll have a bonus one. But we have a team we're really high on, top 3 team for both of us. It's actually ranked number 10. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish at NC State, North Carolina State. I don't really know anything about North Carolina State. I do know Notre Dame we are high on, so it is in North
Yeah,
Carolina. That's about it. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, Sam Hartman did play this team a lot because he was at Wake Forest.
it
I think he
was.
played them 4 times. But I think he was 1-3 against NC State.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Okay,
ooh,
so now they're Notre Dame and Wake Forest are very different teams.
yeah,
Um, I I didn't like what I saw from NC State. Um, Notre Dame's rolling. They're this will be their third game, which gives them that much more time to kind of get things going. I have a 19 and a half points to Notre Dame. Um, it was hard for me to really gauge on this one, but I went 19 and a half. Yeah, it's a tough one.
bruh. I got you again. 7.5
Seven and a half. Okay.
for Notre Dame. I also don't get where they're getting only 7.5. This team looks really good. I think we're both high on them. I don't know if it's just because we're both high on it, but I don't think NC State is good at all. So I don't get how it's only 7.5 for that. I would easily have said 14 or something also. But
Yeah.
another one we would easily say we put money on it, but our track record isn't that great.
And you've
All
got a
right.
bonus one for me, huh?
I do have a bonus one, just a teaser if you want to see what's up. I thought it was interesting. Um, this one's the one I would actually be interested in. See what you think. It's number 12, Utah at Baylor. So, like we said earlier, Baylor lost at home. Utah won at home against Florida. Cam Rising is apparently going to come back. They're saying he's practicing now, should be the starter. Baylor, I heard today, their starting quarterback is out. They're going to probably play their second string transfer, I think, from Miss State. It is in Baylor. I think it is. Is it in Waco? I gotta find this for you. It is in Waco. What do you think the line is on this one?
Um, I mean, that was an embarrassment last week for Baylor.
Yes.
Um, I, I I just think that Baylor's going to be in a state of disarray. I think Utah is going to be supremely confident after beating
Mm-hmm.
Florida. Um, I think confidence is something to factor in to something like this. You know, obviously Baylor is probably reeling from what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you know, I would bet it's probably not a great locker room vibe right now. The only hope maybe is again, like Texas Tech, they band together maybe. Um, I'm going to go. Um, I'm going to go with a line that I think is realistic of what will actually happen.
Okay.
Um, based on what I've just seen from these other lines, I think I'm going to overblow it a lot. I'm going to say 14 and a half to Utah.
Yeah. See, I also was around that range. Utah minus 7.5.
Yeah. That's yeah. If you had told me, okay, what do you really think it's 14 and a half? What do I think the number is going to be based on what I just saw? It'd be 7 or so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think this also started before the Baylor thing, whatever started, I think on Sunday, if I remember correctly, 3. I think it was 3.5 or 4. I could actually look it up. I actually have it open, which is absurd. Also, I did not understand what that line is. And now with more knowledge at Baylor, yeah, it started at -4 on Sunday, or Monday. Now that we know what we know with Baylor not having a starting quarterback, they just lost bad. Utah lost good, lost like one well, not lost well, one well, and is bringing back their starting quarterback. I don't know how it started at 4, but I guess the money is on Utah because now it's at 7. So unfortunately, we didn't get it before he got over 7, but that would be the prime. But yeah, interesting. So the streak, the undefeated streak, does not continue, unfortunately.
No, but hopefully I get to make it up in picking the correct lines. Only because I think that this is some of those lines were absolutely ridiculous. And I
Is
think that's going
300
to
the
be
max we can put on? Is that what we've said?
no, I think you can put however much you want.
Well, if I put 1,000 on one, then what I do with the other 4,
It's
5?
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
No one.
we can put a limit on it. You want to put 300
I
as
think
your
300
limit?
should be the limit.
Okay.
All right. So Ole Miss -7.5. We both have Ole Miss. I have it for $100. Eric only has 50 on it. I don't know if he just isn't confident on that line,
Correct.
or he's too confident on other ones that he just doesn't have any more money from spending it on these other easy lines.
I think it's a combo of both.
Okay.
I just think that is kind of a wild. It's going to be a wild game. I think Ole Miss is a boom or bust team. I don't know enough about Tulane to be super confident in it. But then also, yeah, I'm betting a lot on some of these
On
other
other
games.
teams.
So
Yeah. Okay.
yes,
All right. The second one, Bama -7. We both have $100 on it, but I have Texas on it, and Eric has Bama on it. I know a second ago I'd say I smashed Bama, but this is the one that I was saying last week. It was my hot take. That I'll get into that in a second. Is that Bama loses to both Texas teams and still makes the playoffs. So for that to continue, even though I know more now than I did a week ago, and Texas did not look that good, and Bama did look pretty good, I've changed my thought, but I want to keep consistent with what I would have said, which is if they beat Texas, or if they lose to Texas and they lose to Texas A&M, both Texas teams, and still run it back, and LSU, which already lost a game, but loses to Bama, and Texas A&M loses at least 2 conference games, Bama would still win the West. They would then beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And at 11-2, would you leave Bama out? Being 10-2 in the West and then beating Georgia, a potentially undefeated number 1 Georgia.
beating Georgia, no.
Okay. So if they're the SEC winner, champion, Bama 10-2 or 11-2.
Yep.
Okay. So that's my take. It was a hot take from last week that I forgot to do, but I actually don't feel that great about this line. Because I think Texas isn't that good after what I saw last week, but we'll see. I gotta stick consistent, so I'm gonna take Texas for 100.
I would say I like it, but I don't. So yeah, I've got Bama. I just think they're going to be the better team. Like you said, I didn't particularly like what I saw from Quinn Ewers. Dude doesn't have a deep ball apparently.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. I don't
Which was
get it.
nuts. I don't know what's going on there.
He's supposed to be able to make like every throw, like that's his thing, and
that's his thing. Apparently not.
I don't get it. Yeah,
Alabama's got good DBs. They are loaded on the D line as always. That's gonna be a rough time.
It'll be the first test though, so we'll see.
It will be. So we'll see. I have 100 on Bama on that line. At 7, I'm taking Bama at a 7-point line.
All right. Maybe Steve Sarkisian has something up his sleeve,
Maybe he does.
If they get out a lead, early with the touchdown or 2, might not be enough for Bama to catch up.
That's true.
All right. The third one being Texas A&M at Miami. Texas A&M -4.5. I have A&M with $200. I think they win by at least a touchdown. Miami did not look that great against Miami, and I don't mean the spring game. I mean the actual game they played on Saturday. A&M did play against nobody, but the offense did look lights out, and their defense is better. I still have concerns, but is better. So I think this won't be. I think it'll be at least a touchdown, probably closer to 10, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, the only thing that I think is the big key for me is if the Texas A&M run defense can hold up Miami. Like I said, I do think they have a good stable of running backs.
Yep.
I don't think we saw. I think we saw the tip of the iceberg of the A&M offense this last weekend, and it looked pretty explosive. They've got playmakers all over the field. And so I think it's going to be too much for the Miami defense. I'm also taking Texas A&M for 250.
Okay. All right. The first one that kind of blew you out of the water.
Yep.
Oregon minus only 6.5 versus Texas Tech in Lubbock. I got Oregon for a limit of $300 because I don't understand that line. Yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything else.
I also have Oregon for 300. I just did not like what I saw from Texas Tech. I think Oregon's going to be able to put up points. What would you actually predict the final score to be?
I don't think there's going to be defense.
No, I don't.
Shit, I should have looked up the over/under. Give me a second. But as I think about that, I think it'll be 45-30, something like that. 31.
I think it's going to be in the 52, 52 to 35 range.
52-35.
Yeah.
I can't find the over under.
Yeah, it'll be 52 to
Oh,
35. Yeah.
over under is 67. Ooh. Ooh.
Smash that over. Let me
What?
tell you what. Smash that over.
They're assuming a 30 to 37? No fucking way.
Mm-mm.
No way. That's what
No.
they're getting. Okay. All right. All right. I think that's wrong, but
Mortgage your home.
we might be wrong and they might know something we don't know.
Yep. Or they
All
don't.
right. Or they don't. And the last one, or then the bonus, Notre Dame -7.5 against NC State. I have Notre Dame on this one as well because I don't understand that line either. $300.
Same. Notre Dame, $300. I just think they're gonna blow the doors off of NC State. I don't get the 7.5 point line.
Don't get it. Over under is 51. That one makes a little bit more sense. That means they are projecting a 23, 20, no, 22, 28 game. 20, something like that.
Yeah, I see that more as a 35-14 game.
Yeah, I closer. Yeah, 35-20. Yeah,
Maybe
something like that.
35-16 if you want to keep my 19.5 point line.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I agree. And then on my bonus one, I would put $1 million on Utah by 7.5. But
Okay,
I will
$1 million.
lose that guaranteed. Guaranteed that watch. We're gonna go perfect because we have the same ones except for Bama. One of those would be right, and then I'm gonna screw up and Utah's gonna lose by like $1 million.
Yeah, but that doesn't even count. So
watch, they're gonna win by 7, and I'm gonna be pissed. They're gonna win by 7 and the line 7.5.
There you
go. $1 million on it, dude.
I have been Eric.
And this was Berto.
And this was Totally Biased. See you guys next week.